Listening is very important.
Because if you don't listen, how would you know what the problem is?
Everybody who's working in and around me, their personal well-being is also a responsibility that I carry.
Great leaders have shared vision.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
Film and entertainment is definitely one of the levers for any country to build its brand.
We are getting global. I feel that we're just on the takeoff.
More and more films are becoming language agnostic.
Content is a universal language.
There's one audience in the world.
Absolutely. End of the day, we all are like brothers who have mutual respect for each other from a different land.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
There's a new video around what deepfake can do.
We have seen a trailer of this a few days back.
Donors should not be only on the platform.
We'll have to wait and see how those play out.
Hindenburg's report cannot be taken as gospel of truth.
You were the chosen one to direct Mr. Bachchan for his first endorsement, for his first appearance on the small screen.
It was a life-changing moment.
Have you been a rebel with a cause?
There was a sense of responsibility, there was a sense of frustration.
Are you worried about cancel culture?
You tell a story with a fierce psychosis, you're gonna spoil it anyway.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
A defiant performance by Ten Hag's men. Now standing at 7 feet 4 inches, Satnam Singh is making his way into professional wrestling.
We are getting more good news for India.
The football is mother of all games.
It is a team sport.
The leadership attitude is taking the ownership.
It's always a big responsibility to take decisions and the right decisions.
I always question the stereotypical.
And that's why you are in that position.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome to On Point, and in this side of the debate we are going to talk about Manipur. 10 days after senior police officer was abducted in IMPHAL by members of a radical Meitei organization, a junior commissioned officer, a JCO. A JCO with the Indian Army was abducted from his residence in Manipur's Thoubal district on Friday morning. Now, according to officials, a group of anti-social elements stormed the house of Khonsam Khera Singh Friday morning, bundled him into the vehicle and fled the spot. A resident of the Charangpat Mamang Leka in Thoubal district is serving as a JCO in the Indian Army and was on leave. The cause of the abduction is not clear. Manipur IGP IK Muiwa, I may quote him verbatim, warned that such incidents would necessitate the presence of central forces in the valley districts where the disturbed area notification under the Armed Forces Special Power Act is not applicable, unlike in the Hill district, if police are not able to perform their normal duties. All security forces are currently engaged in a coordinated search operation to rescue the abducted officer, and all vehicles plying on National Highway 102 are being checked. Let me play out two important bites on this, but it's a very serious issue that has taken place.
Totally failure of the state government to control the violence which had happened since 3rd of May. We know that the present government already admitted that the present violence was due to the failure of the law and order of the state. That has been stated by the presidency ministers in the public platform, and also admitted that the present violence was happened due to the failure of the intelligence. That was clearly stated by the presidency ministers.
And I'm joined by Suhas Chakma, Director Rights and Risk Analysis, and Major General Ashwani Sivach, and in studio Brijesh Pandey. To you, General Sivach. First, a police officer gets abducted, released. Now, a JCO gets abducted on leave. Your comments.
No doubt, it's very unfortunate. Earlier, just 10 days back, additional SP was abducted, and in fact, the inspector was also abducted with him, and he was injured, and thereafter he was rescued. Now, a JCO who was on leave, he has been abducted. See, the point what is happening is, as far as the valley is concerned, there is no disturbed area notification, and due to which all this so-called militant group, whether it is basically the Arambai Thoubal or other militant group, they are operating, and they have sort of abducted this JCO, and now the whereabouts are not known. Now, my point is that we have been talking about it once, that there is the Armed Forces Special Power Act in the hills. I suppose the time has come that you may have to impose for a limited duration Armed Forces Special Power Act in the Manipur Valley also. Otherwise, you will find it that the law and order will deteriorate, and the new normal is that now all these militant groups will start abducting the people from the security forces to put pressure on the government, and that's not a good sign. We thought that the situation is improving, limping back to normalcy, but such incident again take the situation back where it started off. Now, possibly this JCO may not have been harmed. They are trying to search it, but I feel the coordinated effort can only be made once the whole Manipur Valley is being considered a disturbed area, notification done, Armed Forces Special Power Act then can be applied. Then the security forces, especially armed Indian Army as well as Assam Rifle, can then operate, and that is a requirement of the day in case you want to effective. These incidents are happening too very often, and they send a wrong message to the public as such that things are still not under control. Kartike.
Mr. Chakma, first the SP, then a JCO, the guy was on leave, and what I find surprising is, if you can take both the questions, Senior IGP IK Muiva is being quoted saying, if police is not allowed to work, then disturbed areas notification under the Armed Forces Special Power Act, might become a possibility, in the sense that he says that it would necessitate the presence of central forces in the Valley district, where the disturbed areas notification under the Armed Forces Special Power Act is not applicable, unlike in the Hill district. It's like a warning.
Well, I think it's a joke at this point of time. If the IG is saying that, it's a joke on the people who are suffering, because who is stopping the police from taking action? Obviously, nobody is stopping. And if there is somebody stopping the police from taking action, then obviously, even if you impose Armed Forces Special Powers Act, still, those restrictions will be there. And that's where I think, I slightly disagree with General Sivach. Of course, we do not have possibly any options except imposing Armed Forces Special Powers. But the problem here is the KUKI groups and the Central Armed Forces in the hilly areas, they have some understanding, and the KUKI groups will abide by or will not confront the central security forces. So therefore, the imposition of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act is effective. But when it comes to the valley, obviously the central security forces are seen with suspicion not only by the non-state actors, even by the police and the common citizenry. So if you impose the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, it would mean return to the kind of situation which we had seen during the insurgency in early 2000 and onwards. But that's the situation which the state government can afford. And also the situation of insurgency in the valley has changed, because the insurgent groups earlier had a couple of hundred members here and there. And today, if you take Arambam Tengal into account, they have about 50,000 members, and we do not even know how many arms they have. So if you start imposing the central security forces start operating on the Armed Forces Powers Act, then obviously you have to come to a situation where there will be massive confrontation between the civilians and the armed forces, who, because of the frustration, as stated by the IGP Muiba, then they will have to take the law, act as per the law, and that's not something which will be allowed. So that's why I think it's a mess which is created, and at the end of the day, I think there is so much of arms and ammunition and hatred. I do not even know, how does one bring the situation into normalcy. And if you go to Manipur, one thing is very clear: the police doesn't exist. The Chief Minister Reid doesn't run beyond his possible office. The armed forces are not available there. So, people have been left to fend themselves. It's completely lawless situation out there. And that's why, a JCO has been kidnapped, and more such kind of incidents will take place. And the worst thing would be if the JCO who has been kidnapped actually has been kidnapped by the people from his own community. At this moment, we do not know. Imagine if he has been kidnapped by armed groups or non-state actors from his own group, then the situation has taken a completely different turn. It's no longer about the communal situation between two communities. It's absolute, lawlessness in the valley.
I think that's a very important statement, General Sivaj. If if the gentleman has been abducted by the members of his own community, that's one aspect. And the second aspect is, because it's being reported in papers that the Meitei organization and a couple of setups are reporting that, again, it seems that Arambai Tengal is involved.
Very correct. See, the point what is now coming out is police effective in Valley? In case if it is effective, then there wouldn't have been any problem. You see, what is your basic aim is to bring law and order in the Manipur Valley also. Now, if you are not effective, then what is the alternative? The alternative is then you call a higher force, which is either Assam Rifle or the army. And in case they have to operate, then there has to be a notification which has to be done of disturbed area, and Armed Forces Special Power Act to be invoked. Either you are able to control the situation with the help of police and people have confidence, that's the ideal situation. But if you are not able to do, then you have to take the next step. And the way this JCO has been abducted by his own community, that makes this case much more complex. So what is the aim of these militant group? Are they putting tremendous pressure on the government? Are they asking for something as an arrest? The time will only tell. So, but the question comes is, the situation is becoming complex. And another issue which is coming is, so far we have not succeeded in bringing back those weapons which are there in society. The whole society is criminalized. Everyone has a weapon with himself. He can utilize it. And the police, you may or may not feel good, that is not effective as it should be. So the other alternative is that you apply this Armed Forces Special Act only for a stipulated time, so that the situation come under control. A JCO who is on leave have been abducted by his own community. This is something very strange which has happened. What was the reason why it has happened? How will you save him? This will be now able to be told in time to come. But to me, it looks like that the things are not moving as what we wanted. Two things which were also announced earlier, that there is a heavy pressure on the government. One is that fencing of the border between Manipur and also Myanmar. And the second thing is the free movement regime is not going to be now there. It will be curtailed. This is liked by some people in Manipur. It is not liked by KUKIs, because to them it looks like that the Chin population will not able to come, and you will find it, this cultivation of the poppy will also not take place. At the same time, Nagas and also Mijos are not in favor of basically fencing. So this is another problem which is coming and which has not been resolved, though the government taken a very correct action that both free movement regime as well as fencing will come. But certainly what
what really bothers me, General Sawaj, what really bothers me is that, we thought that this is very specific to the Kashmir theatres, policemen and officers on leave, they get targeted. But this has happened in Manipur, and you had been coming on my show and I had raised this issue again and again. And, we had argued that, Manipur is a different theatre, but there is, similarity. But one thing which is really, really bothersome is, and Brijesh, on this I would like to you to come, is this lawlessness, Even in Kashmir, there were pockets of peace, where army dominated. But it seems that, there is lawlessness, It allows people to operate at will and target those who are supposed to protect civil society.
Kartikeya, I think, what has happened with the JCO is a very unfortunate incident, is a reminder of how non-state actors are periodically pushing the envelope and exposing the helplessness of the state. For an IGP to come out and say that, that if you don't listen to us, then we will be forced to put AFSPA, is a very candid admission of the fact that on their own, they are not in a position to crack down. Other than that, I honestly don't think that there's any other interpretation which can be made out with this. First, it started with how the legislators, how the the ministers, they were called in a fort. A meeting was done. Some few of the MLAs were assaulted. After that, there's an attack on ASP office, and the police was badly stung by the brazenness and the audacity of the assault. Said that we will take strict action. I honestly don't think that we have read anything about what has happened post that attack. How many people have been arrested? How many people have been taken into custody? What exactly happened post that ASP assault? And now with the arrest of a JCO, it is like actually pushing the envelope and exposing the sheer ineptness of the state machinery. The police to say that if you don't behave, I'm going to, we have to impose AFSPA, is a candid admission of that, either our hands are tied, A, B, we don't have the wherewithal to go ahead and crack down on this, because this is an open challenge to the might of the state. And how are you going to deal with this? Are you going to bring in FMR into that? Is this fencing a problem which was being touted, saying that that this is the reason why there is a massive unrest in Manipur? Is this because of that?
So are there three fronts, Suhas? Are there three fronts? You have militants here and there, and then you have this monster of a radical outfit which seems to be picking up people Absolutely. Here and there whenever it wants to. It gets active from Kangla Fort to any part of Manipur with impunity.
I think the people in Delhi do not understand how things operate in Northeast India and the massive communal mobilizations which people can command, at a very short notice, and they can literally overawe the state. You cannot even see that kind of a situation in Jammu and Kashmir. I'll give three instances. One instance was the burning down of the entire Manipur assembly. The second was the attack on the Deputy Chief Minister's house in Arunachal Pradesh when they wanted to give some permanent residence certificate to some of the locals. And the third was when the Home Minister Rajnath Singh was visiting Aizawl, where they organized a big party, etc. So, they can overawe these things. And in Manipur, you cannot even compare with Kashmir. And it's enormous, the entire community gets moved. And the problem in Manipur, what we have at this point of time is Arambai Bengal is not a command-based organization. All other insurgent groups, they are command-based. That this is the, commander-in-chief, there is a deputy who is under him, and etc., etc. So there is a rank and file within the organization, so that you like it or not, some general, major, lieutenant, colonel, whatever rank they are giving. So there is a common structure. with respect to many of the armed groups operating in the valley, there is no common structure, and anybody can act himself or as law unto himself or herself. And even if there is a personal dispute, 10 guys can get together with the guns. You can go and pick up somebody and kidnap him, etc. So it's absolute lawlessness. That's what I was saying. There might be armed forces special powers there. I think the key.
So
point
let me ask you this question. Let me ask you
Please.
this question. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that this lawlessness has become entrenched? It has become systemic in nature? There is a lawlessness in terms of spontaneity of action. Do you think this lawlessness has become entrenched in the system, where it creates its own profits? It's like everyone loves a good drought, ethnic conflicts generate its own political economy. So are we looking at a state where these vested interests have created their own political economy?
Oh, absolutely. Because as I said, if you have 5 arms, in a year's time, you can generate enough money to buy possibly 15 arms or 20 arms. And it has come to a situation, you cannot win elections without the support of these groups. Because at the end of the day, if you have 50,000 people as your members, in a population of say about 1 million people, a couple of million people. Manipur has about 3 million people. That 50,000 is a huge number. So that is why they are able to summon the political leaders, beat them up, get away with it, and Chief Minister, cannot do anything about it except he himself not being summoned. Everybody was summoned. So if that's the situation, what kind of state action you can expect? You cannot expect any kind of state action, and this is a lawlessness which is unseen anywhere in India, and the government of India is going to face massive problem just to restore basic semblance of security as we had in May 2023 prior to the riots, just to restore that normal situation in the valley, because so many arms have been distributed in both the places. It's going to be an uphill task, and it will involve massive violence, because if you do not crack down, how are you going to recover the arms? And recovering the arms will mean confrontation with those people who are having arms. Then insurgency will take a completely different turn. Absolutely different one. You are no longer dealing with KYKL, you are no longer dealing with RPF, you are not dealing with UNLF. It's a mass-based organization without a common structure and with access to enormous amount of arms and ammunition.
I think you hit the bottom line. I think this enormous access to arm and ammunition that had been looted, which continues to float around despite the best efforts being made by police to get them back, it's very difficult because you can't access those areas. Half of them must have disappeared. Plus you have the issue of porous border. But what is really very worrisome in Manipur is that the police officer gets abducted, he comes back. It creates great resentment in the state. You had this arms down protest. Now you have the JSU who gets abducted. Allegedly, reportedly, by the members of his own community. So it might not be a communitarian issue, but then it's an issue of lawlessness. Who organizes a party to abduct an army officer, a JCO, on leave? So it's a big statement. It's a big statement on what's happening at the level of ground. So I can only say that maybe time for stricter provisions have come. A lot of social media activists wouldn't like it, but maybe it is required to enforce that system. This is all in this edition of On Point. But before I exit, I leave you with 9 important stories, 9 important on points, 9 important developments which will reverberate for next few days.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी